Hello to all my dear students. Today the topic of my discussion is software development life cycle. Software development life cycle is a very important topic pertaining to software engineering and software quality management. How the software is being developed depends upon what all phases it has followed, what all processes it has followed while development of the project. Now, talking about the SDLC model, first we used build and fix model. In build and fix model, there was no standard what all steps were to be followed. So, in order to overcome the difficulties that were faced in build and fix model, we moved on to the waterfall model. This is also known as linear sequential model, or it is also known as classical model. So this was the very first model that gave a streamline or standard structure to how the software is to be developed. In the waterfall approach, basically the whole process is divided into different phases, and the outcome of one phase works as an input for the another phase. It is known as linear sequential model or the waterfall model because there is no moving backward in this model. Like the waterfall moves downwards and it cannot go back. Similarly, once the previous phase is being freezed, only then the next phase will begin. And if maybe in the any of the later phases it is required that we should move back to some of the phases and make certain changes, then the whole process is to be repeated once again. So freezing of previous stage and then moving on to the next phase is the basic concept behind the waterfall model. It is very easy to understand and reinforce the notion of define before design and design before the code. The model expects that there should be complete and accurate requirements early in the process, only then it is going to complete all the phases and give the final product to the user. Now, let's have a brief description about what are the various phases of waterfall model. First one is the requirement gathering and analysis. Whenever you are going to develop a particular project, so all the possible requirements of the system needs to be understood. So they are to be captured in this phase and the documentation is to be prepared. The final document that is prepared in requirement gathering phase is SRS, known as Software Requirement Specification. So once the software requirement specification is being written, a formal document has been agreed upon by both the parties, then the detailed investigation and analysis of the requirements is done. Then is the system design. The requirement specifications from first phase are studied in the phase 1, and now in the second phase the designing is done. Basically it helps in specifying the hardware and the system requirements and helps us in creating the overall architecture of the system that is to be coded, like the database design, your ERD, DFD, everything has to be developed first before moving ahead with the implementation phase. When we move on to the implementation phase with inputs from system design, the system is first developed into small programs known as the units, and then in the next phase they are integrated together and testing is being done. So basically in the implementation phase, the coding is done and this coding is further given to the testing team for testing purpose. Integration and testing is the next phase. All the units developed in the implementation phase are integrated and then the testing is done. Once the testing is through and we have seen the results, if there are certain errors then they are to be rectified. Otherwise we have to move on to the deployment phase of the waterfall model. Once all the functional and non-functional testing is being conducted, the product is developed in the is deployed in the customer environment and then it is released into the market. That means for whom you have developed the product, the end user is going to use the product after the deployment in his or her office. Then maintenance part. This is the final stage and it takes maximum effort for the maintenance. Why? Because till the time the user is using your software, it is the responsibility of that particular organization to make future changes. Any bugs, if they found, are to be corrected, and updations need to be made. So to make the maintenance easier, the documentation is very much important, because maybe the changes are required after 6 months or maybe an year. So the developer who has developed the product might not be available in the firm, or maybe he won't be remembering what he has done in each and every project. So the documentation plays a major role at the time of maintenance. So let's see, discuss certain advantages and disadvantages of the waterfall model. Basically, it is a simple model and very easy to understand. Fine. Though it is rigid, but at every phase there is some deliverable that is given as an input to the next phase. So all the phases are completed one at a time. So there is no moving backward. Therefore, delays are also not there, but it is very much suitable for only smaller projects. It has very clearly specified and defined stages, and all well understood milestones are there. And the document and all is created and helps in the maintenance of the software. But when we talk about the disadvantages, it is somewhat rigid model. It requires the requirements to be defined at an early stage, but in real scenario, basically the requirements might change afterwards also. But this is rigid model, so if you want to accommodate certain requirements, new requirements, or changes in the previous requirements, you have to follow the whole process again. So wherever there is high risk and the project is too complex, this won't be able to help out. Only the phases that are to be followed while the development are same. But if the project is too complex, this will be a high risk method for developing such kind of products. Next comes the prototype model. What all disadvantages we have seen in the waterfall model are now being rectified in the prototyping model. What is a prototype? It is a toy implementation of the system, or you can say a small dummy implementation of the upcoming system or the proposed system. A prototype usually exhibits limited functional capabilities, have low reliability and inefficient performance compared to the actual software. It is a basically shortcut method we use for developing a prototype, and this prototype act gives us the functionality, maybe some dummy function it is showing, and then we can see that we can take the feedback from the end user regarding the prototype, and if some changes are required, we can get it done at an early stage itself. So we can see here the diagram of the prototyping model. There is a rapid prototype that is developed, but while developing the rapid prototype also, the phases of SDLC remains the same, and we show it to the end user, and if some changes are suggested by the end user, we try to incorporate those changes in the further software, in the final software basically. Now, there are several reasons why this prototype is required. Basically, to give a look and feel of how the final system will be working, or what kind of interface it will be having. So, to give this look and feel to the end user, the prototype is being developed. And moreover, it decreases the risk factor. Why? Because if the user is giving us the feedback from the very beginning, then the chances of failure at the end becomes minimal. Now, two types of prototypes can be built: horizontal prototype and vertical prototype. If we talk about horizontal prototype, it displays the user interface and gives a broader view of the entire system, but we do not move into the internal functionality of the system. But if we are showing a vertical prototype to the end user, it comprises of a detailed elaboration of a specific function or subsystem in the product. Besides this, there are two categories more also. One is throwable prototype and another one is expandable prototype. In throwable prototype, we just show the dummy functions to the end user and then we do not use that particular prototype in the final product. Whereas in expandable prototype, what we do, we use the same prototype, then we enhance it and add on the functionalities to it, and then we develop the final product. So the advantages and disadvantages are very much clear if we compare it with the waterfall model. It was too rigid, but in prototype model the rigidity is very less. It is flexible also. Customers can see the system requirements as they are being gathered, and changes in the requirements can also be incorporated in between. A more accurate end product is there, supports early product marketing, visible signs of progress can be produced. Disadvantage is that if the prototype is unstable or badly implemented and we move on to the expandable prototype, it might become a problem afterwards. And since we have to develop a separate prototype also, so cost, resources, manpower, everything that is used here is somewhat extra to what we have done in the waterfall model. But it is worth spending because prototype will give you more clarity if the project is too complex. Then comes iterative model. The iterative process starts with a simple implementation of a subset of software requirements and it iteratively enhances the evolving versions until we get to the complete system. So what is done over here, at each iteration, the design modifications are made and the new functional capabilities are being added. So iterative model. Iteration means repeated cycles. So here what we are doing, we have gathered all the requirements with us and then we are going to implement or develop the system according to the requirements. We are releasing the different versions, evolving the versions like build 1, build 2, build 3. The phases that are being followed are same as what we did in waterfall model. I'm repeating it again and again. The base remains the same, but how we are going to use that base, only the methodology differs. Now, iterative and incremental development basically is a combination of iterative method plus incremental build model for the development. More than one iteration may be in progress at the same time. So, the product that is being developed can be developed simultaneously. Now, in incremental model, if we talk about the incremental model, the whole requirement is divided into various builds, and during each iteration, the development module goes through the different phases of SDLC. And there is with each subsequent release of the module, some functionality is added on to the previous release. So this is the diagram. We can see the arrows, the basic structure remains the same, but since there are different builds being developed simultaneously, so we can show it through the backward arrows. So advantages, basically some working functionality can be developed quickly and early in the life cycle, since we have subdivided our requirements into different builds. So maybe one build can be created quick enough and we can get a look and feel of the software at an early stage. So results are obtained early and periodically, progress can be easily measured, cost is less, testing debugging of smaller iteration is much more easier as compared to testing the whole system in one go. So if there are certain changes in the requirements, they can also be incorporated very easily into the system. When we talk about the lacunas or disadvantages, more resources may be required, more management attention is required. Fine, system architecture or design issues may arise because if we are not specifying all the requirements at the beginning of the system and we have already produced two builds and now in the third build some changes are required, so afterwards the integration problem might occur. So this is also not suitable for very small projects. Now comes the evolutionary process model. The name itself tells you evolutionary. Though it resembles the iterative model, but this model differs in the sense that this does not require a usable product at the end of each cycle. Whereas in iterative model, at the end of each cycle, one usable product is being released. But here we do not have a usable product at the end of each cycle. Here the requirements are implemented on the basis of category rather than by the priority. So this model is useful for project where we are using the latest technologies and new technologies, and maybe the team programmers team are not well versed with that particular technology. So this is the diagram where we can see that we have the outline description, and then the concurrent activities are going on, and then the software is being evolved gradually. We have the initial version, then some work is done upon it, and we get through the intermediate version and then the final version. Next is the RAD model. Basically, it is based on prototyping and iterative method both combined into one model. The name itself tells you rapid application development. That means you are developing the application in much faster manner. So the process of writing the software itself involves the planning required for developing the product. Now here minimal planning is required because a working prototype that is functionally equivalent to a component is already being built up and stored, and we are reusing those components only to develop our project further. So these components are already being tested and we are just going to reuse them in our model. So we can see here the user participation is totally involved in this. Requirement planning, user description, construction, cutover. Cutover means deployment basically. Moving on to the new software and removing the previous one. Basically, it comprises of 5 phases: business modeling, data modeling, process modeling, application generation, testing, and turnover. The business model basically is designed in terms of the flow of information and how this information is to be disseminated. The data modeling, basically the information that you have gathered in the previous phase is reviewed in this phase and analyzed to form the set of data objects that are very much important for the business. All the attributes are identified and defined at this particular phase. Then comes the process modeling. The data object sets defined in the data modeling phase are basically converted into the business information flow needed to achieve specific objectives. So the process model basically what it does, it converts your data that you have analyzed into the in the data modeling phase, processes it. Processing is done in the form of addition, deletion, updation, retrieval, searching, and so on, and then the final output is being generated. So next comes the role of application generation. Once the processes and the process modeling is over, now the actual system is being built, the application is generated, and coding is being done. And final phase comes, that is the testing and turnover. The overall testing time in RAD model is less because the testing is being done during each iteration also, though. So in the final stage of testing the burden is much less, and once the testing is done, the components are being thoroughly tested, then the risk is not there and the chances of failure is already checked. So now we move on to the implementation of those particular softwares. Now if we talk about the advantages and disadvantages, the changes in the requirements can easily be accommodated. Progress can be easily measured. Iteration time is very short because we are making use of inbuilt RAD tools, automated RAD tools that helps us in designing the product and reduce development time. There is increased reusability of the components. Customer feedback is always welcomed. On the other hand, if we talk about the disadvantages, there is total dependency upon the technical team members who are working on it. Only system that can be divided into various modules can be built using the RAD model. You require highly skilled designers and developers, otherwise, the time taken to incorporate these things will be much higher. Fine, management is somewhat complex, and this is more suitable where the component based development is required. Next is the spiral model. Basically, spiral model combines the idea of iterative development with the systematic controlled aspect of the waterfall model. So in other words, we can say it is a combination of both iterative and prototyping model, and it allows for incremental releases of the product. It has four phases. This is very important model, and it has four phases: planning, risk analysis, development and assessment. So here in spiral model, particularly risk analysis is being added. So first the planning is done, determination of all the objectives, alternatives and the constraints. After that, all these alternatives are being analyzed and being identified to solve the particular risk. Then the development and testing is done, and finally the customer evaluates the product. So in the diagram, you can see it is, since the name itself suggests, it is a spiral model. So it works in a spiral manner, and you can see all four quadrants are there. Planning is there, first determining the objective, then identifying the risk. So with the development of each prototype, the risk analysis is added to it so that the chances of failure are zero at the end. It is widely used in the software industry these days, though if we see when cost there is a budget constraint and risk evaluation is very important, then this model is being used. It is being used for medium to high risk projects. If there are long term commitments, as there are changes in the requirements, then also the this can be used. If the customer is not sure of the requirements in one go or at the beginning of the development, then also this model can be used. So advantages and disadvantages, though if you see the diagram it seems somewhat complex, but it is not like that. It is not so complex because it can easily accommodate the changes, and risk factor is considered in this in a detailed manner. So it gives success in big and complex projects. Users can also have a look and feel at an early stage because feedback is also involved in this. And when we talk about the disadvantages, though it is more complex, but sometimes it is worth spending so much of amount on the system. Why? Because the risk factor involved is higher. So if we do not take care of the risk factor, our product or the project might fail at the end. And if the team is not experienced enough and the requirements keep on changing, then this spiral may move on indefinitely. There can be no end to it. So this is also one of the drawback. Now next model is the agile model. This is the very latest model that is being used in the company these days, and it is a combination of iterative and incremental process models that focuses basically on the adaptability and customer satisfaction, and it tries to break down the product into small incremental builds, and these builds are again developed and provided to the end user in different iterations, and these iterations typically take 1 to 3 weeks depending upon the size of the project. The basic thing that is there, or the main thing that is there, it involves cross functional teams that are working together, and these, that means cross functional team means these teams will be having members from different areas and fields that were involved in planning, requirement analysis, coding, testing and so on. And at the end of each iteration, a working product is displayed to the customer and the stakeholders. So if we talk about agile model, it is a very realistic approach. It promotes teamwork and cross training. Functionality can be developed rapidly and it can be demonstrated to the end user also. The resource requirements are minimum. suitable for fixed or changing requirements. Both the things can be accommodated in this model. Delivers early partial working solutions. Minimal rules documentations can be easily employed, and it gives certain flexibility to the developers as well. And when we talk about the disadvantages, if the project is too complex, dependencies are more, then we should better go for the spiral model. Fine. There is an agile leader or agile project manager who is going to take charge of the overall plan. Strict delivery management is there. So basically, it, it might happen that sometimes certain points are not taken care of properly. Now, moreover, it depends upon the customer interaction also. If the customer himself is not clear about the requirements and all, it may get deviated from the time schedule. Individual dependencies there, and transfer of technology to new team members may be quite challenging. Since we have seen that there are cross functional teams, so there can be sometimes some conflicting suggestions, also conflicting points, also in which the people might not agree upon. So these types of basic problems might occur. So softwares like Scrum are there, X programming is there. So all these are there in the agile model. So finally, this was all about the basic SDLC models. Now, which model is to be used in which context? It totally depends upon how much end user involvement is required. Do you have the requirements, clear cut requirements at the early stages or not? Fine. If the clear cut requirements you have not got at the early stages, then the models might differ. Then what is the cost, budget, then type of technology you are using, whether your team is already experienced enough, they have worked upon similar type of projects and the technology, what all risk factor is involved. So all these things helps us in deciding which type of SDLC model is appropriate for what type of pro- projects basically. So thank you students. I hope this is clear to you all. Thank you so much.